Welcome back to Chaplain Auto Ministries. This is week 4 of Behind the Wire, Anger Management with Incarcerated Veterans. I had a great class this week at Chillicothe Corrections with our incarcerated veterans and support members, and I am looking forward to today's episode with you. Maybe you're not physically incarcerated. Maybe you are. Either way, chances are that you have probably experienced a mental battle. Maybe you've become a prisoner of the war in your own mind. Behind bars or not, you might feel like you're missing an action from the ones that you love. Have you ever suffered from experiencing peace? Funny question to ask. I know that I have never suffered from experiencing peace. What I do know is that we suffer until we find peace. And with that being said, have you ever or are you currently struggling with PTSD, anger, substance abuse, maybe even suicidal thoughts? I personally have struggled with each category, and I have been able to process and transform my hate, rage, anger, guilt, and destruction into peace. My mission is to help those who are where I once was, and I want to help you find peace, the peace that I now have. This is a peace that surpasses all understanding. And in today's training, we're going to learn ways to diffuse our anger by learning how to manage stress. Anger has been the topic, and managing it sure is a process. But one thing I remember from basic training: slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. Speaking of anger, we all know the negative side effects. In fact, some of us find it hard to believe that anything good can come from anger. Well, I'm here to tell you that you can express anger in a positive way that promotes change and problem solving versus division or just quitting because you can't handle the stress. The objective of you joining me here today is for you to learn that anger is good when it's turned into faith, assertiveness, problem solving, conflict resolution, and forgiveness. Today's objective is to identify and reduce stressors, an effort to enhance our anger management. If you practice and apply this, it will keep you effective on the battlefield of life. I personally know that we can learn how to manage stress in a healthy way that will produce positive results. If it works for me, it can definitely work for you. And the reason that we're talking about stress is because at some point in life, everybody will experience some form of hardship and some form of stress. This is a guarantee in life, and there is no way to escape that. However, we can learn how to manage hardship and stress without breaking down, cracking, burning bridges, or setting ourselves on fire in the process. If you're willing, with practice and repetition, you will be able to develop and use your own remedial action to overcome the weapon jams of life. This training will assist you when you start taking conflict in life. If practiced and applied, you will be able to move, shoot, and communicate throughout all of life's obstacles, reaching your objective without taking or becoming the casualty. Hardships and stress can create a very powerful feeling of a non-physical pressure. So think about that for a moment. The feeling of pressure from a thought, that non-physical extreme pressure, you have to know what I'm talking about. In those moments, if I entertain any irrational thought when I'm stressed, I will not be mission ready. Actually, I will lose control and throw all rational fundamentals out of the window. My thought process would be pull the grenade and throw the pin in the midst of a mental, chaotic battle. I know I have a problem with anger, and if I don't think things through, my anger will control me. Do you think that maybe you have an issue with anger? Can you feel the pressure on your body and in your mind in stressful situations? It's kind of weird when we put it in that perspective, but putting it in that perspective really makes you think, how can my stressful thoughts cause me to actually feel a physical pressure? Well, what is stress? It is defined as pressure or tension on an object. It is also defined as a mental state or emotional strain or tension caused by a demanding circumstance. So, your ability to maintain self control is the deciding factor. Do you let the pressure of stress form a diamond or crack the nut? Who's ready to train? Maybe you're unsure if you have a problem with anger. So take a moment to reflect and do a mental observation and an anger assessment of yourself as I ask you the following questions. Do you go from feeling annoyed straight to angry, aggressive, or shouting? Feeling annoyed is a normal feeling that we all experience, but feeling anger is something completely different. How often do you get angry? Is it daily, weekly, maybe monthly? When you get angry, how long does your anger last? Is it around 5 minutes, or could it possibly linger for days? When you get angry, does your anger intensify the longer that it lasts, the more that you think about it and fight these scenarios and talk negative inside of your head? Have you maybe done or said things that you regret in the moment or in a fit of rage? I have. I remember what it feels like to always be angry. I was the person that every little thing could make me mad, make me very angry, and this anger for me could last for days. My anger could also flare up if I ran into somebody that I had an issue with or was reminded of something that I really didn't want to hear, or maybe something didn't go my way. I've said and done so many regrettable things in my fits of rage. And if you're like I was and you have an anger problem, I'm guessing that when you experience hardship, stress, disappointment, it might feel like you're being wound up tighter than a championship yo yo. And when that feeling happens, we will become subject to the fierce gravity pull. I know what giving up control feels like, and I don't like that feeling. I guarantee you don't either. Surrendering my self control leads to acting it out versus thinking it out. Have you ever witnessed somebody's bad reaction and thought, I can't believe they're acting that way? It's really not that big of a deal. Or maybe you've witnessed the other side and you've said, I really don't know how he handled himself that way. If that would have been me, I would have freaked out. Both of those situations are the same, and they both are stressful. The difference is your ability to maintain self control in a stressful situation. Who likes being stressed? I'm going to guess that nobody is raising their hand right now. And that's because when stress is expressed, it usually doesn't exhibit the I'm feeling great and ready to conquer the world look. When you hear stress or think about stress, it generally looks chaotic. When someone is expressing their feelings of stress and the pressure that they are currently feeling, you might hear, I can't take this pressure. I'm about to explode. Have you ever said that? What comes next? Most likely acting it out versus thinking it out and finding a solution. We have identified what stress is: pressure on an object or a state of mental or emotional strain or tension caused by a demanding circumstance. To break this down, it's an outside situation that causes an internal change. Learning self-control can help diffuse your anger, and one way to accomplish this is by learning how you personally view stress. How you view stress will be your mindset, focus, and direction. You have the power to turn a negative stress into a positive stress. So, what are the two types of stress? The most common stress thought of when you hear the word stress is distress, extreme challenge, overload, and if not handled correctly, could lead you to a mental breakdown. The definition actually states extreme anxiety, sorrow, or pain. I wouldn't raise my hand saying that I like stress after hearing that. Those feelings absolutely suck. So, what's the second side of stress? This is eustress, which is a moderate or normal mental stress, which we interpret as being beneficial. Those examples of distress and eustress are night and day. And it makes you wonder, does negative and positive stress have a physical effect? Like we've learned that anger does, how it cannot, be good for our body to be consistently be angry. Well, what about stress? The answer is yes. Both types of stress can physically affect you, and it's important to understand that your body interprets stress as a threat to your personal safety and well being. This perceived threat sets off your fight or flight. This instinctive and personalized alert sends messages from your brain all over your body, alerting you of a perceived threat. The three stages of your body's physiological and psychological reactions to stress are the alarm reaction, adaptation, and exhaustion. So let's take a little bit of a deeper look into these three stages to really understand them. The alarm reaction is when your body detects a threat. So it's psychological. Hearing someone yell, "heads up," would be a really good example. The second is the adaptation, where your body's defense countermeasures against, the potential threat. This is the physical reaction. So when you hear "heads up," then your eyes start to scan as your legs start to lower, and you raise your arms up to block yourself from a potential threat. The third phase is exhaustion. And this is where your body begins to run out of the defenses because you can't be ducking all day, meaning you can't stay in the stress reactive state forever. Too much of any stress is not good for your body. Stress can have a major impact on the physical functioning of your body because stress releases your adrenaline, and I'm going to butcher this word, corticosterone, which is a steroid hormone. This release increases your heart rate, respiration, and blood pressure, all while putting more stress on your organs. Long-term stress can be a contributing factor in heart failure, high blood pressure, stroke, and many other illnesses. In a threatening situation, this alarm reaction is great. You don't have to think about bending your knees and covering your head when someone yells "duck." You just do it before you think about it. That is a positive reaction to stress. A negative response to stress is having an outburst of aggression and saying, "No, I won't duck," and letting yourself get hit in the face by a stressful situation because you could not manage self-control. I don't want to lose self-control anymore. The same triggers for your anger responses are also the same triggers for a stress response. The same physical reactions can happen from your body's reaction as a protection to anger or stress. So let me ask you, do you identify as angry or stressed? Is it often? If the same pressure that forms a diamond can be the same pressure that cracks the nut, then we have the power to choose the outcome. So let's take a look at some basic fundamentals to help us move, shoot, and communicate effectively. Understanding what triggers you is vital to maintaining self-control in a stressful situation. Nothing good will ever come from disregarding the warning signals. Just like disregarding the warning signal of your tire light can result in a much bigger issue if you don't address it than you could have just by putting 15 pounds of pressure in your tire. So disregarding the warning signals of anger or stress can result in a blow up from the pressure your thoughts can create. Remember, what you find stressful might not be stressful to somebody else. We can learn how to avoid some stressful situations and also be prepared because we know that in life, stress and hardship are a guarantee. Now, I'm a motorcycle rider. If I'm going on a ride and there is a 0% chance of rain, I am still going to take my rain gear because I always want to be prepared just in case. And that is why we are training and conditioning our minds towards positive thoughts and problem-solving skills. Stress and hardship can come out of nowhere. And at times, if you don't know how to manage it, it will manage you. So many times for me, I thought that I would take the edge off of stress by drinking a few beers. What about you? That'll make everything better, right? I mean, drinking solves all problems and is the American way of life. Well, that's what I thought. And boy, was I wrong. When I'm angry and stressed, I can be my biggest enemy in the mental battle. And if you're feeling stressed or suffering from hardship, I want to tell you, you need to avoid drinking and substance abuse. I used to think that I was managing stress by drinking and getting high when all of those habits, they were actually making my life a lot more miserable. I tried to mask it by escaping the problem that never left. And sometimes my problems created more problems by thinking that I needed to drink to take care of a problem. I didn't know this before, but it makes a lot of sense now that I understand being chemically unbalanced disrupts my logical thought process. Substance abuse increases irritability and is a trigger for anger. Using substance or drinking during anger and stress for me is the equivalent of starting a game of Russian roulette with one in the chamber, or pulling the grenade and throwing the pin. Avoiding substance and drinking will play a huge factor in preventing your angry responses and outbursts. How can you practice becoming a diamond under the pressure of life without using drinking or a substance as a crutch? You have to start practicing speaking life over the situation. Positive self-talk and positive situation talk, meaning changing what you say about yourself and how you view life, will greatly impact how you manage anger and stress. You choose the outcome. The diamond is pressed or the nut cracks. Your self-talk originates from your view of life and yourself. If your stress talk is negative, your situation will most likely end that way also. If you view life as overwhelming, maybe you think you'll never measure up. Maybe you tend to think, I can't handle that. This is too much for me. Why try? I'll just fail anyways. Well, with that vocabulary, you're absolutely right. You will fail. Your negative self-talk will generate more feelings of stress and hopelessness, which will make you less motivated to change. Negative stress talk will cause more anger and frustration in your life. Another form of stress talk is blaming. For a long time, I blamed others for my anger, actions, and disappointment. So let me ask you, do you ever find yourself saying, if they would just meet my needs, I would be happy? Or, I wouldn't have called you that name if you didn't move the flashlight while we were working. What about, if I wouldn't have lost my job, I wouldn't have gone out drinking? Well, the cold hard truth is that no one will ever be able to meet your needs. And we actually have the power to make choices that will fulfill our needs. I have to take ownership for my actions, and so do you. We have to own the fact that we decide if we get angry or not. I'm not an elevator, and by that I mean someone can push all the buttons that they want. I don't have to go anywhere. They can jump up and down, however, I do not have to drop down to their level. We have the power to pull our own strings and not be a puppet in someone else's play. We make the choice to own or forfeit control. No one has ever made me so mad that I had to call them a mean name or go out and drink. I have let myself get mad and chose to drink and say horrible things because I was too weak then to manage the situation, and I only knew how to temporarily escape it by indulging in drinking or substance abuse. And this prolonged my healing because, like I said earlier, when I woke up, that problem and sometimes more problems were still there. I have to own the results of the choices that I make, all of them. As we wrap up today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about my class and also how I have viewed stress and handled it in the past, distress, eustress, and how I'm handling it now. So to start it out, my class is going great. This is week 4 with these guys, so I'm really starting to build some good rapport, getting good responses, and It's just so much fun to go through this curriculum again because I'm learning more from it, and to watch these guys learn and grow, and some of the stories, which at some point I will be sharing some of those, just with how they are learning through this curriculum and applying it in real time. And I hope that you're doing it as well. So we have been defining triggers at the prison and here on the class for Anger Weekly. And I wanted to take a look at some relatable triggers that the men in my class deal with in prison. And I say relatable because I think that these anger triggers will line up probably with everybody watching this. So triggers can be passing the blame, gossip, being ignored, being interrupted, when you're trying to reach somebody and they just won't answer the phone. Let me ask you, can you relate to any of those? I personally know that I can. So think about when you're stressed, because we've all been there. How do you react when you can't get a hold of somebody when you're feeling stressed? What about when you're stressed out and someone is ignoring you? I mean, maybe you feel the both in the same one. They're not answering the phone, but imagine being in a stressful situation and you're trying to talk to somebody and they are just ignoring you when you're under the pressure. Could gossip, blaming, or being interrupted set you over the edge in a stressful situation? All of these at one time mastered me, and now I am learning how to master self-control, and you can as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about how I viewed some stress previously before I started taking this anger management curriculum. I wish that I could go back now and make so many changes, but distress and eustress, I talked about being in the car business a lot and, coming back from my day off, and I was a new car manager. Sometimes, the day I was off, cars would get delivered from trucks and they were supposed to like tag them up. I'd always have everything ready. That way they could start the process so we could get them online for sale. On the way to work that day, I would be game planning in my head what I'm going to do and all of these things, not thinking that I'm going to come into keys piled all over my desk, the cars not parked where they should be, and other things that I just felt should have been accomplished within the requirements of the day-to-day normal activities. I let this cause me distress, and I would put myself under extreme pressure. And in my mind, it's my day got messed up, or I just didn't look at it correctly. I would let things like this flood me with anxiety because I was flooded with emotions, and I would start to be irrational in my mind, like, well, why don't they care? This should have been done. What were they doing yesterday? Or now this is up to me. I have to get this done. I didn't get this done because I had to fix what they didn't do yesterday. Blaming. And I definitely felt like there was times where I wasn't in control of my department, and that would be because there was no accountability. And I wish that I would have learned not to let some things wind me up tighter than a championship yo-yo. And I could have been better at my self-talk. Looking back, I have reworked so many of the mistakes in my head that I had under distress. And with this knowledge that I've now been learning, I'm honestly embarrassed at, how I would act in situations where I felt distressed. Now, eustress for me was like kind of a goal. And it could be the last week of the month and my boss would be like, all right, we need to sell 15 more new cars. This was motivation to me. Trying to find 15 customers or deals to put together, that excited me way more than coming into 5 or 6 keys on my desk. I looked at this as like a goal. It would motivate me to start moving and doing something about it in a positive manner. And we could get to the last day of the month and they could bump my goal 5 more cars. And I would be, yeah, let's go. We're going to get 5 more. Like I said before, what is a distress to one might be a eustress to another. Now, I knew other managers or people in the car business that would not blow up if they came in from their day off and there would be keys all over their desk and cars weren't parked. And I also know that some of those would be crushed under the pressure of needing to find an additional 15 more cars for the week. The good news is that we can choose to see the difference and yield the results of a diamond. Another example that I wanted to share of being in, just a stressful situation and not becoming a target, maybe when you feel like you're becoming a target, or opening up the door to be a target by what you say and how you respond. So, this week I had to start working a part-time job where I am going to start learning how to sell roofs in the meantime of building up the ministry. I've been working as a volunteer for this for the last year, and haven't made a paycheck, which is fine. I'm not in this for the money, but you have to have money to survive. Thankfully, the ministry is doing great on gas money, so I'm able to hit all of these events. So I'm just trying to get you guys in my mind frame of what Monday morning was like for me. And, I woke up knowing that I was going to go to start to learn something new for a process and the time being of what I'm doing, which is not necessarily what I want to be doing, but I have to do something about it. So here I go. Well, the night before, I had made an ad for Ohio's first prison run. And what is a prison run? It is basically a poker run for the motorcycle world. And instead of going to a bunch of bars, we're going to stop by a prison on the outside of it and ride up the service gate next to the fence where incarcerated veterans will be outside in the yard. And we're basically going to be going right next to it, not inside of the prison, but you cannot drive on the service road. And I was able to get this worked out with the warden of the prison in the efforts to have Ohio's first prison run, specifically for incarcerated veterans. And I've been working on this since September. Now, I'm the state chaplain for the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. I know a lot of people who are in MCs and other motorcycle clubs that I've been talking about wanting to get this done for a long time. And the motorcycle world knows that the only group to ever do a prison run, or to call it a prison run, and the effects of what is actually going to happen, which I will be doing as well, are the Hells Angels. And the Hells Angels have held this prison run for inmates in California, and to remind them, that they still love them. And it's been going on for like 30 years. And when I saw that, I was like, we should be able to do that for veterans. And I politicked, I talked, until finally someone heard and understood my compassion with this. So here I am, super pumped. My wife made this flyer that said Chaplain Otto's prison run, Ohio's first prison run. Well, come Monday morning, I'm waking up. I'm feeling a little bit stressed because I'm not getting ready to jump on the computer and start my ministry week out with everything that I have going on, which was 2 prison trips this week. I was actually going to work Monday and Tuesday. So I get this message from my ad on my phone, and it's from somebody that I have done a lot of volunteering for in the ministry. I mean, over probably 5,000 or 6,000 miles worth of driving and holding services. And, I get this message from my ad, and in my mind, I'm like, this is going to be motivational. This is what I needed this morning because I'm feeling stressed. I was wrong. I was wrong. And when I read this message, I kind of looked at my phone, and I felt that frustration and that stress because I'm planning a huge event. So what did that message say? It was sending me a link to a church that takes their motorcycles inside of a prison, which is really cool. It's really cool what they do. They go inside the prison, they play some music. There's maybe, 10 or 15 of them. I'm doing something completely different. I'm doing a prison run. And I hope that there's going to be more than 1,000 people that come to this, not 10 or 15. Both are really cool. I'm just doing something different. So I read this and I realize that, this person has blown me off multiple times. They don't answer my calls. They don't return my text messages. I'm supposed to have coffee with them and they've, either canceled or not shown up. I haven't spoke to them since last year, sometime in November. And here I get this message that says, this group does prison runs all the time. they go to Mansfield prison a lot. And I'm like, man, dude, why are you even messaging me? For real. Like, you blow me off, you don't talk to me. Why is this now the time that you're going to reach out to try to discredit what I've done my due diligence on? And I really thought about, my response, and I was angry and frustrated. I felt the pressure. I was getting ready to go to start a job, and just annoyed. And I sent a message. I was like, hey, thanks for reaching out. This is a really cool event that it looks like they're doing. I'm not doing an event at the prison. I'm doing a prison run, which is completely different. And only the Hells Angels have done this. And I'm now doing it with the ministry for veterans. Hit send. Hopefully that's the end of it. And, I get in my car and I see the messages come across, and it says, drive around the prison. And at that moment, I just want to be like, they don't drive, they ride. But I didn't respond because I knew that I was feeling the stress, and I was taking it personal because of the relationship that I've had with this person. But it wasn't going to be beneficial for me to get through that day. And that was a struggling process. That day I had 3 people call me that needed rides somewhere that I could normally help out, but I was out learning and doing something different. That way I could have enough money to pay my bills and still go to prison and teach class on Wednesday and Thursday. So just giving an insight of real life situations and what people go through behind the wire and on this outside of having freedom. It's not always easy. It's not always fun, but you can definitely get through it. And just as a reminder, today's goal was to identify and reduce stressors to enhance our anger management. Because the storms of life, as you have just witnessed, will come, and you need to decide to change and how to make healthy choices that will improve your health, mind, emotion, spirit, and relationships. If I would have responded how I felt to that message, that wouldn't have been good. I wouldn't have been qualified to be here teaching anger management. But I want to tell you that for me, I have to have a foundation, a firm foundation for situations like this, the rock on which I stand firm throughout all life's storms. And for me, Jesus Christ is my refuge, and he can be yours as well. And I'd like to share this verse in Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27 to understand what the different foundations are in the storms of life, because we know that the storms, that hardships and stress are coming. And Jesus says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them to practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew, and they beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them to practice is like the foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and great was its crash. What's the difference? The storms are the same. As a Christian, I will get the same storm as a non-Christian, but the difference is the foundation. If my foundation is firm like the rock and not shifty and manipulative like sand, I will withstand the storm. And I have one more Bible verse as we close today, and I think I'm going to be preaching about this on Sunday at the Chapel of Rest, and it's 2 Corinthians 4, 8 and 9. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. See, the Lord is with us always. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this message, please hit subscribe, and if you think that it would be helpful, please share it with someone. I just made some new updates on the website, so go check that out. And until next time, stay blessed.